Spider-Man has been swinging across our screens for over 2 decades now, and in that time, we've seen countless different versions tackle his character in their own unique visual language, their own approach to web swinging, their own unique visual style, and their own ways on how Spider-Man should look and feel like. From Sam Raimi's theatrical melodrama to Mark Webb's exaggerated style, every filmmaker has left their stamp on how we see this character. So how exactly did Sam Raimi's Spider-Man establish its own visual language? Well, to be frank, Sam Raimi came into this thing with basically zero traditional blockbuster experience, mostly being known for The Evil Dead. But it was the style of that film and Raimi's filmmaking that ended up being exactly what made the Raimi films work. In terms of the visuals, things like the color palette lean towards something warm and saturated, full of golden sunsets and deep primaries that evoke classic comic book panels. Retrospectively, I've always loved the visual work of Raimi's Spider-Man. Maybe it's because of my nostalgia, but there was just a way the films looked back in the 2000s that I genuinely love, and this trilogy captures that feeling perfectly. In terms of camera work, it was constantly in motion, swinging through the city with Spider-Man in these sweeping, exhilarating crane shots that made the audience feel the rush of web swinging for the first time. At that point, it didn't really matter how realistic the swinging was. We were just happy to see it done so well on the big screen. In terms of action, the films employed extreme close-ups during sequences, creating this disorienting visual impact. There was just a way Raimi handled action that felt very raw. Every attack and every hit felt like the character's bones were about to break, and each fight felt like everyone was genuinely trying to kill each other. Techniques he basically pulled straight from his horror background. This was enhanced even further by the exaggerated sound design, which is honestly one of the most underrated aspects of these films. Raimi's approach was this bizarre tonal cocktail that shouldn't have worked, but absolutely did. Part Evil Dead's inventiveness, part Superman the movie's earnestness, and crucially, part Silver and Golden Age Spider-Man camp. That comic influence is everywhere if you're looking for it. The way the Green Goblin's bombs literally turned the victims into cartoon skeletons, the physical comedy that makes you cringe, the corny lines, and the bright primary colors that pop off the screen like ink on a newsprint. Raimi wasn't afraid of cheese, and that's the point. The cheesy embrace of the source material paired with the earnestness of a serious film is what makes so many people love these movies to this day. So how did Mark Webb's approach to Spider-Man differ from what came before? Well, the first movie was basically a product of the popular style at the time, that very dark and grounded reboot aesthetic popularized by Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy.
You seriously think I'm a cop? Cop in a skin-tight red and blue suit, you know, you're...
You see the mandate all over it, the desaturated colors, and the very realistic way the world was portrayed. But here's the thing. Despite that dark and realistic looking world, Webb and his team knew exactly how to capture the energy and visuals of Spider-Man himself. There were countless uses of iconic Spider-Man poses. The visual camera work and the way Spider-Man was shot was just honestly brilliant, and crucially, the web swinging felt real, one of the benefits of being a realistic take. There was a kind of weight to it. The way Peter's webs interacted with the environment was very grounded. He'd actually attached to buildings, and the momentum and physics of his swings carried actual heft.
Hey, watch out! I'm swinging here!
This was different from Raimi's Spider-Man movies, where Peter felt kind of floaty at times, and webs attached to non-existent buildings off-screen. The momentum of his swings also felt slightly off. It makes sense though, considering that realism was never something Raimi's creative team was interested in at the time. When it came to the first Hasm movie, that grounded feel felt mandated by the studio to to capture the trend of dark gritty reboots, but you could still notice Webb's style coming through from time to time. This was seen even more in TASM 2, where Webb's voice became a lot more apparent. That grounded yet stylish approach from the first movie was brought over into the sequel, but there was some major visual changes. The visuals of Spider-Man stayed the same, as well as that kinetic, realistic-like swinging. In fact, it's taken even further this time, with some very elaborate and stylish maneuvers. This stylistic feel moves into the action as well. Spider-Man's parkour and exaggerated movement really suits the action in this movie. He's moving in ways we've never seen before in a Spider-Man film, enhanced even further by the stylish camera work, especially these great sequences where the scene slows down and we observe Peter reading his environment, planning his next move. The visuals are much brighter and more colorful in the second movie, almost as if Webb was finally allowed to push back against the mandated darkness. The humor was also a lot more emphasized. Yeah, humor was present even in the first movie, despite it being a lot more serious with its tone and characterizations. But the humor this time is very exaggerated in the second movie, which makes sense considering that Webb this time started incorporating more of his comedic style into the film. That 500 Days of Summer DNA really starts bleeding through, seen in the witty banter and the physical comedy.
Oh yeah, I was cleaning the chimney.
We have no chimney.
What?
In this case, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and thus some aspects of The Amazing Spider-Man 1 are some of the most stylish, visually interesting, and rich Spider-Man films out there. It's just unfortunate that it was made during a time where Sony was desperate to catch up to the MCU. So how did the MCU approach Spider-Man when they finally got him back? Well, the best way I can describe the style of the home trilogy is safe and basic, but also fun. The MCU Spider-Man doesn't feel like a director's vision the way Raimi or even Webb's versions did. It feels like a product of the MCU machine. Style-wise and visually, it's not the most remarkable thing we've seen, especially when you compare it to the Raimi and Webb versions. The visual approach is clean and functional. The swinging, like the Webb version, felt like there was realistic physics behind it, but it almost felt a bit more basic. The films were not the most amazing thing we've seen. It felt like these movies got the job done without committing to anything too stylistic. But the style of the movies did feel unique though, at least when it came to Homecoming, which evoked a Ferris Bueller's Day Off kind of energy.
Do you have a date for Homecoming?
Thanks, Jason, but I already have a date.
Okay.
It was kind of like a sitcom version of high school life, interjecting scenes with really quirky moments. In that way, it did feel a bit different from most MCU films, and each subsequent movie in the home trilogy had a very unique and fresh premise, which led the way to some interesting storytelling. So now we've come to Spider-Man Brand New Day, the film that represents a new era in Spider-Man's MCU journey. And oh boy, did they make some of the most major changes this time around. Dustin Daniel Cretton was a much needed change for this franchise, as he brings a fresh and unique vision to the series, one that is so good that I'm not sure I can ever go back to John Watts. According to what we know, this film legitimately feels like the ultimate love letter to every aspect of Spider-Man history. Clearly, the creative team went out of their way to recreate several iconic poses and imagery from Spider-Man comics. The trailer alone gives us that classic Amazing Fantasy number 15 cover shot, plus countless other direct panel recreations. In terms of the visuals, the film looks good, yeah, at least the shots and cinematography are the most interesting they've been in years. Most have noticed the dark and gritty colors, which has caused some apprehension. I think visually the aesthetic is trying to tie into Peter's emotional arc. Peter's world is empty and dark because he lost everything. That's why the visuals and world are dark, but Spider-Man remains colorful. The only time Peter feels good is when he's Spider-Man. I bet by the end of the movie, we'll begin to see more and more color appear within Peter's environment. Brand New Day takes the stylized philosophy of the TASM movies and cranks it up to a whole new level. The visuals, in my opinion, rival the TASM films. Those movies were known for their comic accurate poses and weighty physics, and Brand New Day matches that while adding Cretton's own unique energy. It's so much more visually interesting compared to the home trilogy. The shots and composition are just so much cooler with the use of contrasting and vibrant colors. The camera is dynamic and kinetic, which complements Spider-Man so well, especially as we see it literally drone and follow him around in these fluid tracking shots. Brand New Day feels like a director actually got to direct. The fact that he's shooting Spider-Man as a genuinely lonely, street-level hero is just something I love. Anyways, what is your favorite style for a Spider-Man film? Right now, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is still my favorite, but I'm really getting impressed by Brand New Day so far.